This is the difference in wellness and well-being. Wellness is the pursuit of optimal health and something we look outside of ourselves for, and it's an industry that's worth 9.2 trillion. Well-being is one's subjective satisfaction with their life, and that looks different to you, to me, and it was different last year. Well-being is the goal rather than wellness, and we conflated the two things, and we think we have to do an activity or launch an app to have a sense of well-being, but we definitely don't. Perhaps it's paddle. Everyone has got well-being needs, and either you prioritise some of it in the short term or you will pay long term. If you don't eat well today and for months because you are grafting, you will put on weight and you will be unhealthy.
If you suffer with depression and then felt suicidal, that might kind of go together. If you suffered with bulimia, then you have body dysmorphia and worries about your body image. And if you're diagnosed with late stage autism, then it's going to teach you something about yourself you didn't know. My next guest suffered all of these, went on to really investigate, research and work to understand the difference between wellness and well-being. And his TEDx talks on this subject have educated millions of people to understand how we need to address wellness and well-being, not only as individuals, but also, more importantly, in the workplace. So please welcome the incredibly knowledgeable, quite controversial, but really honest, Ryan Hopkins.
And if you think about the preventative piece from a mental health perspective, mental health is soon to become the second biggest spend in private medical behind MSK, overtaking cancer.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming to join us on the show today.
Thanks for having me. It was such a nice walk down here this morning, like 45 minutes. It was lovely.
Where do you live?
Not too far away, by Hammersmith Bridge. So just like grabbed a coffee, wandering down here. It was spot on. Nice little commute this morning.
And the reason you're wearing a sling is for some sympathy from pedestrians on the street today?
No, so you go easy on me in the subject. No, I wish I had some cool story. Like I was fighting off attackers or something, but unfortunately I don't. I ripped my bicep moving a Super King mattress because I thought I could do it all on my own, and I had it reattached 2 weeks ago. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks.
Well, yeah, I hope you get well soon, mate.
I appreciate that.
Okay, let's just talk about this myth. Okay, called wellness. I'd like to, first of all, get a bit of your backstory and understand some of the experiences you've had in your life that have led you towards this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I want to talk about some of the challenges that a lot of the public perception have around what wellness really is and well-being as well. Because to me, there's kind of like... there's two trains of thoughts. And I think those trains of thoughts come a lot of the time from people that just don't understand what they're talking about. So first of all, tell me a bit about your backstory. I know you've had a few issues in your life when you were younger. So can you just give us some context there, please?
Yeah, how long we got? So I'll do what I do now. So I'm the Chief Impact Officer at JAAQ, which is, in my opinion, the world's coolest mental health platform. I'm in charge of analysing and maximise the impact on the world. We've answered 1.5 million questions on 100 plus topics, and we're just getting started, which is awesome. Strategic wellbeing leader at Bupa. So I'm helping corporates to make data-led decisions regarding mental health, less wellness fluff, more practical, actually action in the business. Wrote a book called 52 Weeks of Wellbeing. Got a nice little copy there. Yep, spot on. Love to see it. My publisher told me I'm not allowed to be 5 meters away from a copy at any time, so this is how I'm getting that done.
But before you carry on, you did say that every single one of our listeners and viewers was going to get a free copy sent to their home, didn't you?
Yeah, send a note to my publisher. We'll see what they do. It's going to be available in Arabic soon. So it's publishing with JAAQ across the Middle East, which I'm really excited about. So trying to organise a little tour across there. It became a bestseller, which I'm really proud of. Done a couple of TED Talks on this subject. And the reason I do what I do is because when I was younger, I had an accident playing rugby. That was my identity. I was trained to be an electrician, or a sparky, as we'd say in the UK, but for the international audience, that's an electrician. And I was playing rugby, broke my ankle and my leg. You know, this picture on Instagram, you got, yes, I want to see the gory picture, the thing behind this. Yes, I want to see it. It was facing the wrong way. And the paramedics were like, Mr. Hopkins, that don't look good. And I was like, I am absolutely aware. So they 3, 2, 1, we're going to put it back in or you're going to lose your foot. Pushed it back in, but they didn't know my leg was broke. So it pushed all the bones up my leg. About a year recovery, lost my electrical apprenticeship job, put on lots of weight, in a wheelchair, multiple operations, and ended up in a place where I wanted to take my own life. And if it wasn't for my mum and my nan, I wouldn't have got through that time. So big up to all the parents and grandparents, because that unconditional love is perhaps the greatest wellbeing intervention in the world. There's a soundbite. Well, I hope it's true, isn't it? We don't always need apps and stuff, and we'll get into that in a second. Following that, I got a job in a bank, and I was a pretty good seller, as I said to you before, and You come in, I say, if you want a £5 like your passport, you're an old person, you go out of a mortgage, right? And I actually developed a relationship with bulimia because I was trying to lose weight, started obsessing over metrics and stuff like that. And that was a really difficult 8 years. Went to university late because I didn't have any qualifications really. Started to work from like 13. The difficult family situation, I had to help my brothers and stuff. So GCSEs didn't happen. A-levels weren't on the cards. Finally got accepted to the worst university in the UK. And my first year, they were like, we'll give them a go. Worked my butt off, transferred to a better institution, finished, got into the Deloitte grad scheme where I was working in consulting, starting to speak about my experience and create pockets where I could help people work better. But using my experience in digital transformation, thinking actually, unless you change the business itself, you're not going to create a culture where well-being can happen while talking about the things that happen to me. So these things come together, big multi-million digital pound transformations, treating well-being like a discipline in the business, move sideways, and eventually end up coming back to Deloitte after a hiatus and a couple of redundancies to build the wellbeing consultancy, which we launched to market and took around the world and positively influenced the lives of like 1.2 million people through that work, making it really data-led. So no fluff, no gumph, doing it properly, creating better work, because when you create that workplace where people can thrive, the business will as well. But we'll get into that properly in a second. But that's a whistle stop, you know what I mean?
And you did that in 3 minutes.
That's not bad, is it?
When we talk about data-led information, obviously the data is the truth. But for me, there's different versions of the truth as well. Because when you consider data-led information, somebody came to me the other day and said they wanted a pay rise.
Yep.
And I sat down with them and said, I don't want a pay rise, or I want a bonus structure. And I was like, okay, let go and do some research and come back with me and present it to me. And they came back and presented it. And they said, based upon these metrics, and these metrics, I think it should be X, Y, and Z. And I said, where have you got this information from? Well, I've been studying online, different companies, how they do it and whatnot. I'm like, great. What companies? And like BMW, Siemens, like massive conglomerates.
Yep.
And I'm like, there's 60 of us that work here. The rules that apply to a massive conglomerate don't apply to a small business. It's a completely different business. Why would you go and take that information? Well, partially, I think that information was gathered because it might have suited that person.
Selective qualitative analysis,
maybe,
right? Yeah.
Okay, or it was easy to find that information. And so when we then come and lean into this whole area of wellness and well-being, there seems to be a lot of information around large organizations, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of information around small organizations where the vast majority of people work.
Yep.
So why should we listen to anyone that seems to want to talk from a position of knowledge and data when their data doesn't apply to everyone?
Love it. Well, it's called data manipulation for a reason, right? And you can pick data to justify any cause if you look hard enough. So if someone's cherry picking things, it's going to obviously advocate for their cause, but you could do the same on the inverse, right? So that's a slightly unfair argument. Starting it like, and they're never going to come to you and say, "No, I haven't found the data which justifies my argument." Unfortunately, are they? Like that'd be the worst.
I have no data.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I'd really like some extra wedge if that's all right. But it's not going to happen, is it? So with the wellbeing thing, it's so interesting. A lot of the companies in the space, they get into it with the best well intent in the world. It was absolutely scaled in 2020. We're working remote. Everyone's launched an app, right? Because it was the right thing to do, support people. We all came around as cohesive cause, which is to get on together, a sense of community through that collective trauma almost of what was the pandemic for a lot of people. And they've used studies that exist elsewhere. Well, when you spend £1, you get £5 back. Does that relate to that app? No, not at all. But what they're missing often is they're looking at the downside. They always speak about the hypothesized upside, the increase in productivity. Do most wellbeing apps increase productivity? No, of course they don't. But can it help keep one person when they're going through a substance misuse issue in work? Potentially. And the cost of that is massive. If you look at the downside, the business case, the absenteeism in the business, a small business will have absenteeism, a large business will have it. When you treat wellbeing like a discipline, you benchmark where you are, you can then benchmark to industries, you can see the delta, you can see why people are leaving. In a small business, it's easier to understand why they leave. Why are you leaving? Was it the workload, something else? Well, then that's a stress, well-being related concern. You can then quantify the cost of rehiring, which is often 80% for professionals. Then coupled with the cost of absenteeism and the cost of replacement of people to cover that, you've got a case of well-being there. Then when you launch something, you can see if it actually addresses that business case. And a lot of things won't. Because one size fits all with well-being. If you aim to fix everyone with one solution, it's not going to work. Because I've gone through X, you've gone through Y. people in the studio have gone through something else, right? So when we presume to understand what people need, we're going to fail every time. But how many of us have actually gone into the business and seen what the needs are, what the demographics? We found that in the UK, only 1 to 2% of companies are using organisational data like that to measure the effectiveness of their wellbeing work. So they're working off of sentiment, nice feelings, some rose-tinted glasses of how things used to be, right? That's why we're pulling everyone back into the office. Still waiting to see some quantitative data as to why that's happening. I'll wait, right? But this is where we are. So the business case, the need for it is real, but the assessment or proving of the apps often isn't. And then that's the difference.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So the business case and the need for it is real when you can assess it. Because if there's a company with 12 employees and 1 or 2 people leave every year, you're never able to gather enough data to determine, because if you're losing 1 or 2 or 3 people a year, now one could have been pregnancy, one could have been relocating to another place, one could have been because they think the boss is an arsehole. The other one, it's like there's all these different reasons. And so when you don't have this high staff turnover in terms of, I don't mean
then you've got a great company and you probably don't need it to start with, right?
Yeah, but I disagree. I believe, you take most companies, what should you factor in anyway in terms of in staff turnover? In the UAE, they say 1 in 5 look for a new job every year. So that's 20% of your workforce. If you lost 20% of your workforce every year and you employ 1,000 people, that's scary.
That's different. Yeah, for sure.
When you have 10 people and you lose 2 people every year, that's just an inconvenience. And so, and then what also happens is that a lot of the blame game can be played and used very easily, can't it?
Definitely.
So we'll dig into this, but I'm a firm believer that if you've got a sense of purpose, a sense of mission, and a sense of belonging, then I think that's the core of what everybody needs to be able to move forward positively. If you feel your boss likes you and he's given you opportunity for you to grow and move into things that you feel you can add value in, you like the people you work with, the environment's not perfect, but it's not too bad. If you're the guy that likes to go for a pint, everyone goes for a pint on a Friday night. If you're the guy that likes to play paddle, there's a paddle team in the office. You know what I mean? If there's that going on, then for most people, surely that's enough.
But then that's where you get into the point there. This is the difference in wellness and well-being, which I think you've highlighted in that perfectly, right? Wellness is the pursuit of optimal health and something we look outside of ourselves for, and it's an industry that's worth 9.2 trillion. Yet well-being is one's subjective satisfaction with their life, and that looks different to you, to me, and it was different last year. Well-being is the goal rather than wellness, and we conflated the two things, and we think we have to do an activity or launch an app to have a sense of well-being, but we definitely don't. Perhaps it's paddle. Perhaps it's going for a beer. And if you think about well-being, that can cut into your financial, your relational, your physical health, your mental health, all of it. And that changes all the time. So the goal should be to create a place where people can do whatever the hell it is they need to be their best self. And most of the time, that isn't another app. There are about 400,000 health apps in the world. We've never been more stressed or disengaged at work. 10% of the UK workforce is engaged at the moment. I think the global level is just slightly higher. But
we'll go on to apps in detail in a minute. LVMH, I know them well, signed up with Mind Valley, 52,000, I think, or something like that in terms of sign-ups for Mind Valley, less than 2% even logged on, and less than 8% of the 2% even used any one of.
Then you're going to struggle, aren't you?
Okay, so but again, it's the same. When you get too much of something, you become deaf to it. Yeah. So apps are one of those things. We went app crazy, and now there's too many apps. I just want to sit down with you face to face. I have a podcast and. As we know,
it's quite good.
I
was going to say, yeah.
Did you know I've got a podcast? But I don't ever want to do the podcast online.
No,
I want to do the podcast sitting, looking at you and talking to you and being part of that emotional experience.
Yeah,
and that's me. When we hear about people saying come back to work, it's not them. People are like, I don't want to go back to work. It's not the right thing. It's like. There's nothing. I don't care who you are. If you're the biggest recluse on the planet, there's nothing healthy about staying at home all day, every day, and not making new friends and not building social connections with people. Before the internet came along, most relationships started in the workplace. Most people met their wife.
I couldn't possibly comment. I actually met my girlfriend on LinkedIn. She messaged me, just to be clear.
I was on a dating app.
yeah, that's not the intent of the platform.
Every woman listening to this right now that gets hit up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, it's actually the other way around this time. I'm not. That's not a place. That's not a place for dating. Just to be clear, but that is how it happened.
Apart from you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But so I look at this kind of like gathering data is important. Yes, understanding what you've mentioned because of well-being and wellness are two different things, which I agree. But it's for me, it's like there's a solution. If we look at the core structure is a business is behind this. So if we first of all say you and I set a company up, why did we set a company up? To have lots of happy people or to make loads of money?
The former, which then creates the latter, right?
Okay, so the plan was, okay, when you and I set our company up, was to go and build a successful company that you and I could have fun doing, okay? But our primary objective would have been 9 times out of 10, we don't like working for the person we work for, why don't we set our own company up? Because we can keep the money ourselves. So when we set a company up, that's the journey. We don't all become Richard Branson. We don't all become British Gas. You know, most people don't. Most people end up with a company where they're employing maybe 50 or 100 people, tops. The kind of challenges they're facing are, oh, wow, we've never had a HR manager before. Now we need one. What's that all about? You know, before we had an office manager that kind of did everything. Now we need...
They're coming back, though. There's more of them again now.
But do you know what I mean? It's like for the smaller companies, you don't even have a HR manager. You don't even, you have, that recruitment consultancy that Bill used to use that we're now using as well. Okay. If we put an ad out online, maybe we can find someone that way to, what's he moaning about? Go and speak to Maureen because she'll make sure that he sorts himself out. We don't in smaller companies have any of that. We set the company up to make money and have some fun. We didn't set the company up to be a charity. We didn't set the company up to create well-being for other people that work for us.
However, when you do create a place where people can prioritise whatever it is they need, which often isn't an app, as we said, it's whatever you need to be your best self, right? And for me, that was walking here this morning, 45 minutes, spot on. That's great. While an app can help you do those things, you actually have to do the thing outside the app. A meditation app helps you meditate. One that counts your steps helps you get more steps, right? So it doesn't actually matter. It just enforces the behaviour and enables the habit to actually happen. And then if you think about the importance of it in a small company, I'd say it's actually even more important. Because say you've got an organisation of 20 people and your sales leader is absolutely frazzled, right? You're squeezing them because that's what you're like, Spencer, right? You're trying to get as much out of them as possible. And we got deadlines, right? If we can't get the bill in from our biggest client this month, we can't keep the lights on. So we're pushing them. And obviously we're pushing them. But if you push too far, they will leave. And that loss to get someone back in there is huge. Then that is a well-being related issue that they've not been able to prioritise what they need, right? And there's all like work-life balance. And it is a bit of a nonsense, really, in my opinion.
But hold on a minute. And I've got to challenge this.
Please.
It's very rare where I've lost an employee and I've had to find a replacement that 12 months later, I look back and I'm like, darn it, wish I'd never lost him. It's almost like being in a relationship with a partner, yeah? You're in a relationship, you had 4 years together, it's gone well, you break up, oh my God, devastation, it's all gone wrong. And here we are with a new partner 12 months down the road and it's like...
And it's all forgotten.
Yeah.
Of course it is, but it's easy in retrospect, right? But in the moment where you've got to find someone in your sales reports and you've got to pull someone through, that is quite painful and it's obviously not something we would choose to go through. But once we got through it, often you'll have learned something of that past year and brought someone in better, right? Because the business will have evolved. But that's an issue you wouldn't want in the moment or a headache that you're going to be concerned about for quite a while.
Agreed.
And that's difficult in the short term. Like you say, the business case isn't as large, but it can be felt more qualitatively, right? The impact on the team, how that happens. Whereas when you get in bigger companies, it's almost like a quantitative, non-personal feeling about it. It's like the absenteeism is X, the attrition is Y. We're really struggling to get new talent because Gen Z have seen our Glassdoor reports and it's 3.2 that people are getting absolutely smashed every month. So, but actually, this is interesting and you'll like this. The perception of well-being is perhaps more important than the initiative itself or whatever is done. And we did a piece of research at Deloitte and we asked leaders, are you responsible for well-being in your team? And 97% said yes. Obviously, there's outliers. I hope you're not working for the 3%. Then we asked them, are you exemplifying the behaviours you expect of your team? And then 30% said they were. So essentially, do as I say, not as I do. And there was a really good study by the S&P 500 across all organisations. They found that voluntary attrition was 1% lower for organisations where well-being was the focus of the survey, perhaps speaking to the perception of it. So if I just know it's important here, because I see you looking after yourself, I'm going to do what I need. And I don't need an app for that. And actually, when that happens, it makes a big impact on how people stay in the business, how they advocate for you in the market, how they'll speak to clients, how they turn up in the world, how they write on social media and LinkedIn about their experience. So it's harder to quantify, get the big figures in the small business. But when you really think about that impact, keeping them happy, and perhaps it's pulling the foot off the accelerator by 2% in the short term, so you can actually keep them over 4 years and keep that tacit knowledge inside the business. But it's about getting that like really basic level of analytics, understanding how we're performing, and then you'll be able to assess that over time. But as you say, you get two people leaving the business, it's almost impossible to create a business case for that. But it has to be on the feeling and how everyone's performing then. But then it makes it a fluffy discipline, right? Because then it doesn't feel like it's something we can assess, which makes it even tougher.
Gary Vaynerchuk says, never expect any of your employees to work as hard as you.
Exactly.
Okay, it's not their business. It's your business. Don't be naive to think that. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that.
There's having that common incentive, right? If you say we hit this goal together, we're all going to get paid. Everyone's like, yeah, let's go. Like, if I understand why we're doing it, and it's something that matters to me in that sense of purpose, he who has a why can deal with any how. That was my favourite quote. It's Nietzsche, actually, in Viktor Frankl's book about who's a survivor of the Holocaust, a book that changed my life.
Yeah,
like,
man's search for meaning.
Incredible. And it's so true. And then if you find that why, either in the connection or the community or something, that is well-being, but that's not wellness. And that's the difference. Because then you can prioritize yourself because you feel like you're contributing to something greater than yourself. Well, I'm more studying. I'll stop studying now, all right? So Oxford did a big piece of research, so wellbeing interventions, so volunteering, financial wellbeing, coaching, etc. They pushed a group of people through. Point A, what's your subjective wellbeing? Point B, what's your subjective wellbeing? They found that, I think it's 9 out of 11 actually worsened subjective wellbeing in the short term because they didn't change anything in the business, reducing the meetings, creating space. They're just pushing one more thing on you. For me, that's the paradox of awareness.
Okay, explain it in a bit more detail because some of our viewers won't be English mother tongue. So I just want to make sure they really get that.
Yeah, of course. So they essentially asked how you're well-being at point A, and they pushed a series of different people through 11 interventions. They asked at point B. So 9 of those interventions actually made well-being worse for the individual in the short term, on the average. Volunteering was best. Financial well-being was worse. But that doesn't say to me that volunteering is the thing you need to do to fix your business. Rather, someone that finds themselves in a situation where they can volunteer, where they don't have to work a second job or pick their kids up at 5 o'clock, is perhaps in a position where they can prioritize something to give back. What a beautiful place to be in. However, someone that goes through a financial well-being literacy course is perhaps in debt, start spending less money in the short term. Are you going to be happier because you're getting 1 less Uber Eats this week? Of course you're not, right? How are you going to explain that to your other half, your partner? They're going to be pissed off. But are you making changes that's going to benefit you in the long run? That's why it's the definition of well-being there. It's the issue for me. And actually, it shows that financial well-being can be the right intervention for one person. Volunteering could be for another.
Yeah.
And that's why that one-size-fits-all struggles, but that's why it's important to keep them and have them or an option or a suite, which I know you do through your business, right? And then when people need it, they'll step to it. But there's something really cool. It's called the deal of dual accountability at work. And you'll like this. You'll remember this one as well. It's not an organization's responsibility to improve happiness. It's not. But it is their responsibility not to worsen it. And when we flip that switch, we move away from bikes, bananas, and one-off events, and we start looking at the meeting culture, aligned incentives, the job description. For me, there's no issue. In the UK, we've got investment firms all over the world. You go to work there, you don't expect to be working 40 hours. You're going to be working 70. That's actually not a problem because they didn't lie in the first place. You go there with the full expectation that that's going to be the case. But if you go work somewhere that preaches work-life balance and they keep you there till 8 o'clock or they're firing you like emails at 9 p.m., that is an issue. And again, that comes back to the perception and the psychological contract, the non-verbals that actually set the culture in the workplace. And again, that is an aligned, agreed, well-being culture. Then if you chuck a nap in to somewhere that's really struggling, that is just going to piss people off. And that is what that Oxford research shows. So unless you create the space and give smart people 2 bloody minutes themselves, or give them the agency to do whatever the hell they need, the app will fail every time. But when you couple the 2 things together, the outcomes are positive.
Okay, folks, let's talk about real estate. Now, a recent partnership that we've just established on the podcast is with AYS Developers. Luxury properties with high-end finishes from people that really understand the subject. Often in Dubai, you'll find stuff that is maybe substandard. With AYS Developers, you're not going to see that. You're going to see fantastic properties that you can buy, you can invest in, you can make a home on Dubai Islands and other places too. So go visit aysdevelopers.ae and check them out. I promise you it'll be worth the trip.
Can we make some distinctions between a few issues here? So we've got the employee who gets a salary.
Yep.
We have the employee who might get a salary and a performance bonus. We have the salesperson that has either a very small basic salary or no basic salary, okay? And they have to go out there and earn a living. The person that goes to work every day for the 30 grand a year salary is a very different type of person to the
100%.
person that's working on commission. The person working on commission, work-life balance isn't a thing.
No.
Okay, because a work-life balance means you have to sacrifice one for t'other, which means you have to sacrifice making money. You know, that commission-only salesperson goes on holiday for a week, they've lost a week. It's like being a self-employed plumber. You can't do any plumbing because you're on holiday and,
That's
Spain
what they
with
work
the family.
Christmas Day, don't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at a highly competitive salesperson, you will notice that they don't have things like well-being needs or wellness needs. There may be some fallouts because of the kind of work that they do, but most of them are driven because they're competitive and they want to win. They've got a winning mentality. They want to make as much money as they possibly can, and they're empowered to do so. I often call them intrapreneurs. They're people that have got a brand, a logo, a product, and everything else. They've just got to go out and find the clients. Then you add the entrepreneur onto that equation as well. If you look at the people that are under the most amount of stress, that probably could use the most amount of help, that's not often the case. Those people are fighting fires every time that they open their eyes.
Yeah.
So do we have to remember that, again, it's like you say, it's not one size that fits all because different people need different things. Yeah, but there's not the same type of person in the business either.
But that's exactly it, right? I think everyone's got well-being needs. And either you prioritize some of it in the short term or you will pay long term. If you don't eat well today and for months because you are grafting, you will put on weight and you will be unhealthy.
Agreed.
Right? So well-being is no small thing, but it's made up of small things. It's the little things we do every day that actually matter. So even if someone is working 12 hours, they can prioritize the hell out of themselves. You see the busiest salespeople, entrepreneurs, CEOs doing Ironmans. No one doesn't have time to spend 5 minutes on themselves. And that's often all we need. But it's about the import of it and the people understanding about themselves. And often, actually, if they're driving their entrepreneurs, they've read, they understand, they know that their best asset is themselves. And they'll prioritize whatever the hell it is they need. But often it's not a long yoga course, or perhaps it is, right? But it's about whatever it is. So my first TED Talk was called Engaging 1 Billion People from the Toilet. And I was the first person in history to do a TED Talk from a toilet. But the whole concept was, you don't need a big app. You don't need other things. It's about the little things we do every day. And apparently you go to the toilet 8 times every day. And if you don't think you do, honestly, Spencer, count today, you'll be shocked. And then if you did 10 press-ups every time you went to the loo, you'd do 29,200 press-ups this year. There's no app involved, right? And you'd be absolutely jacked next summer. I can't do it with this on,
You'd have really dirty hands.
You would. I wouldn't suggest doing it in the toilet because the noises might be a bit scary for people in the cubicle as your feet fly underneath the cubicle next to you, right?
And that's just them.
But like,
that's just the CEO with his HR manager.
This is it. But then these people, so everyone has got well-being needs, but work-life balance is completely unique as well. And for me, it's boundaries. And you might work up until 10 p.m, but you might be like, after 10, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with my wife, and that is sacrosanct time. Everyone could be able to define those boundaries. And it's not about expect everyone to work 9 to 5. You don't go into being a salesperson. I said, like, you wouldn't go to Goldman Sachs expecting that sort of life. And if you do, then you've made an error of judgment and you haven't researched the role enough, and you'll fall out of the industry and you'll go to something else. So I think it's about understanding. And then when you think about the workplace interventions, look, most of them are really long 12-week courses, and we're shocked why there's 2% utilization because obviously they don't have 2 minutes themselves. So we've got to think, what are the micro things that we can get in front of these people to help them before they go bang, before they end up in burnout or something else, which is, you see a lot of it on LinkedIn and stuff, and half it is actually people just feeling really tired. There's been a bifurcation of the language. So it's essentially what that means. It's like an extremification of it. You're either absolutely fine in a really good sense of well-being, or you're completely burnt out. It's almost not allowed to be tired, anxious, sad, or anything in the short term. Otherwise, you don't get the airtime because someone else has got something more extreme.
These things weren't I'm 55 years old. When I was 25 years old, those weren't words.
No, but you were tired, and so that's what I'm saying. We need to bring that back to say each day, I'm a bit shattered today. And you're like, that's cool. What do you need? We get the sales done and then take some time, right? But that doesn't happen as much. You almost have to wait until it's really extreme because that's almost like the narrative now. It has to be accepted. We've got to reach this point before we can reach out for help. Whereas we want to engage people before. We want to make sure they're doing whatever it is they need each day. But remember, it's those micro things, not the big interventions.
Is it like saying to somebody, these are the 5 things you need to do in your role this year. Okay, once you've got them done, take the rest of the year off.
That would be a pretty cool workplace, wouldn't it? But then, you said you get your KPIs done, full agency and autonomy. You're a smart person. If you get your KPIs, I don't care how you get it done. That's an enlightened workplace, isn't it?
Because to me, it's like in sales, it's like, there's your target.
Off pop.
Okay.
If you don't hit it, we're having a conversation in 3 months.
You got some choices.
Yep.
If you get it done in the next 6 months, then take the rest of the year off. Okay. You can have as much time off as you want, but you must have got that completed by the end of the year. So I don't care which way you do it. I'm going to trust that you make the right decision. Okay. That's fully empowering somebody.
Yep.
Okay. And when you fully empower people, do you believe by fully empowering them, they react in the right way?
Depends on the person. Because if you fully empower everyone, people will take the biscuit. And in the UK, what that means is they will take the mickey, right? Some people will abuse it. At another company I was at, we had 10,000 people. We launched unlimited paid vacations. There's no limits. We're like, everyone's clearing their KPIs, take as much as you like. Everyone thinks it's a myth. As soon as I mention it on stage when I'm speaking, I could be naked on a unicorn and that's all they would remember. And they'll try and nail me, well, it's a myth. It doesn't work, does it? People take less. Well, it can work if you get the culture right and you maximize agency. And what that says is you work here, we trust you as a smart person to get it done. If you take the piss and you essentially take 60 days vacation, don't hit your KPIs, you're out the door, but you were going to do that anyway, regardless if you had that level or not. So that separates the wheat from the chaff or the good from the bad, doesn't it? And you want the people that will thrive in that agency. And you can set short-term goals. 1 month, I want to see you do your 1,000 outbounds, right? So we're setting ourselves up for success. If you know they're getting it done, they got their right attitude, they'll survive and they'll get it done and they'll thrive. And then what you want to do with that agency piece is maximize, if you can, the temporal flexibility. So that's when you work, do it how you like. You got to pick your kid up at 4, that's cool. I know you'll graft until 9 this evening. No dramas. That's flexibility, right? Then you say you work where you want. If you want to get it done, you got to travel a bit. You want to spend some time with a client, spend a couple of days off. No dramas. I know you'll get it done. It's about maximizing that flexibility while keeping the agency and, like you say, that sense of connectedness to business. And that is an enlightened workplace.
That's making sure that the employee and the employer are completely clear.
The KPIs have to be
and agree, okay, that those can be achieved and should be worked towards.
Exactly. I found out at 32 I'm autistic, which is why I remember numbers like they're going out of fashion. You could have told me your phone number when I was 12 and I'd still remember it, right? But what that means is, for me, the KPIs...
That sounds a bit creepy.
It does a little bit. It weren't meant to sound that weird. But through that, like if we're getting clear on your KPIs, and when I work with people, for me, it's the way, like we'd say we're going to do this. Okay, fine. Then I'll work back and I'll work out what I need to do in sequences, share that, and I'll communicate that to the world. That's how I really like to work. And actually, I think a lot of people could benefit from that. And that clarity is not clear up front. And then we get annoyed with people that haven't fulfilled whatever it is we're expecting them to do. And again, once you get those KPIs, then everything comes downstream from that, doesn't it? And then you can try and say, all right, well, we come in we'll bring everyone together because it's important to feel connected. You can work where you like, so you can essentially pick your kids up or whatever. That is a workplace that prioritizes well-being. And while there could be an app or something that supports, or it could be a healthcare service like a Bupa or a Cigna or something else, that is only when they've got the time to do so. But they have to be considered separately. What the business does is create the space, agency, autonomy, an inclusive culture that lets working parents do what they need, right? That's what it is. And it's not about like doing events all the time or these other things. It's the unsaid often that create a place where people can prioritize what they need. Then if they need, the other services are over there.
I get what you're saying, but I do really believe that people need to feel they belong somewhere.
100%. The balance is, the mix is balancing flexibility and belonging. And if you can maximize flexibility, you enable people who didn't get the same opportunity we perhaps have to come into the workplace while making sure they still feel connected to the business. With that 10,000 person organization I work with, we found that during COVID, attrition or like leavers for new joiners was 3 times higher than pre because they're working remote, couldn't feel connected. People who joined the business during COVID, they were 3 times more likely to leave in the first 6 months compared to pre when we were in the office.
Interesting.
Because they come in, imagine joining a workplace now and trying to learn completely remote. You get 2 minutes with your manager when they're flat out trying to get stuff done, looking after 10 direct reports. You would leave that business and you're not going to feel connected to that common sense when we were together rubbing shoulders, getting it done right in the trenches, you know what I mean? Those late evenings, and that's where it's created. That's where the culture's created. But now we have lost a bit of that. But it's about finding the balance because ultimately when we push people back to full return to office, we lose working parents. So it's about how can we keep them involved while making sure we keep that sense of connectedness. And your point on the salesperson versus the HR assistant versus ops, they've all got different requirements, and to badge them all the same, so we've all got to be in 5 days, will probably fail. So you don't want to be a salesperson and be stuck in one place, do you? And we do that in the name of inclusion.
The salesperson, you want them out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why you got to understand each role and what they need
Yeah.
from a proximity perspective. And actually, proximity doesn't equal connection. And when you're seeing that people in the UK are ordering everyone back to the office. I don't know if you saw Manchester United were ordered back. Jim Ratcliffe 5 days a week, because emails that were sent in Ineos, his other company, were lower on a Friday. So he used that as a proxy of performance and ordered people back in. I'm like, or perhaps people are trying to get their work done because they got less traffic on the Friday, or perhaps they are taking a few minutes themselves. But is that an issue if they're flat out the rest of the week and they're getting it done? For me,
but I don't think that people bring the people back into the office unless they're seeing something go wrong. I don't think most employers are saying you need to come back. We're doing better than we were before. You need to come back.
Oh no, there's definitely not that way around. You're 100% right. But there's no like. It's often we need to come back for culture or something else, and there's no rationale. There's no like clear like we've actually lost sales or something has changed. But you're right, and it is a balance. Just how can we keep some of that flexibility while getting that sense of cohesiveness back? And each role will be different on the spectrum, right? Belonging versus flexibility, and you can think about each one. And then we say, actually, we want to keep these people in the business, because if we force, again, working parents to come back in, we will lose a lot of them. They will leave the business and look for somewhere with more flexibility, and then you're losing talent. But then in a 20-person organization, you have to make different decisions, right? So again, then it would depend on the business, the role.
Let's talk about a couple of things here. First of all, let's talk about who creates culture. What's the job title in the business that creates culture? Because I have real issues with certain people in businesses that think that their responsibility is creating the culture when I don't think it is.
No, I agree, totally.
So my belief is that the owner, the CEO, the chairman, whoever that is, the person that started that company and he's board are the people that should create and drive the culture.
100%. That's what I was saying earlier about the perception of it, right?
Yeah.
They all believe it's important, but then they don't exemplify the behaviours. And if people say on the all hands or when we come together, this is a priority, do what you need, and then they flout that themselves, that creates that's how the culture's created.
So why do these people in this kind of like people and culture roles think they're responsible for determining the culture?
Because it's been put in the title.
I find it fascinating.
It's interesting. It sits everywhere. And it's my opinion that actually, if you work on a laptop, the biggest contributor to the well-being at work will be the IT function, not people function.
Interesting.
Because if the average, apparently according to Microsoft, we're distracted every 2 minutes now. Every 2 minutes. It takes 25 minutes to get into a state of focus.
I don't think it. Do you say every 2 minutes you're distracted?
Every 2 minutes.
That seems like a long period of time.
Yeah, imagine it'd be nice to have 2 minutes.
I mean, did you walk here this morning like I did, yeah? So I came from Earls Court area.
Yeah. Oh, you worked not too far from
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a 30-minute walk. Mm-hmm. On that 30-minute walk, I bumped into about 20 people, and I was the only one that didn't have my phone in my hand. They were all looking down.
You're the inverse. That's brilliant. Like, it's nice though, right? It's very rare that that's the case, isn't it?
But most people have got their head down, tail up. They're not paying attention.
Every 2 minutes.
Yeah, and
that is not
nobody can just.
Yeah, but what are they doing in those 2 minutes? They're checking emails. Are we paid to send emails? No, we're not.
They're not. That's nonsense. They're not checking emails. Okay, they're addicted to their TikTok or their Instagram or whatever it may be. The vast majority.
The Microsoft survey.
I never sit on the tube ever and look over at someone's mobile phone and find them responding to an email.
Well, you've never sat next to me.
But in future, I'm gonna.
But like the Microsoft is in the workplace. So actually when they log on to Teams or whatever, and that's actually from only Microsoft interruptions. That's emails or IMs. Every 2 minutes. Ding, 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 taking you out of a sense of focus. But then we're getting really good at responding to messages quickly. We couldn't let our status dot go orange, could we? But are we paid to send instant messages? No, we're not. And it's another paradox there, the paradox of productivity. The more productive you are at responding to those quick responses, how can I find this file here? How can I find that? The less productive you'll be, because you'll be the easiest link for people to go to.
How committed to someone's well-being are you, and or wellness as well in the business environment, when you believe, and this is a true story of something that happened, when you believe that the best way to take care of your staff is to buy the best medical insurance money can buy for them and their family. Now, bear in mind, we don't have national health in Dubai where I live, so everything is private.
Yeah.
Okay. And so one company who we work with, they have about 950 employees, so a medium-sized company. And they believe that wellness is a load of nonsense. And they believe the best way okay, is to provide really high quality and comprehensive medical insurance for the employees, for the children. Now, if you then take that a step further to Riyadh Air, which is the new Saudi airline, they're providing fully comprehensive medical insurance for the family,
Amazing.
the kids and the parents.
It's an amazing benefit. That speaks volumes, right? But then to your point, like, is that the well-being goal? Is that like the enlightened state?
Is that, well, when you as a business,
Yeah.
you've got an allocation of money,
Yep.
and like we've gone backwards and forwards here going, well, what is the solution for every individual? It's different, yeah?
Yeah.
But when you've got this amount of money,
You got to make it work, haven't you?
okay, you got to make it work. And so if you truly believe as a business owner, okay, that you never want employees. Now, this is what happens with medical insurance on two examples. Number one, medical insurance is provided whenever you go to the doctors or the hospital, you put your card out and whatever treatment it is done. The second type of treatment is when you go to the hospital, you have to pay the first 20 quid. 20 quid.
Yeah. Nothing.
Nothing, yeah?
Yeah.
It's dramatically different how many people that have got that insurance go to the hospital because they don't want to pay the 20 quid.
Yeah, the tiny barrier, but you think, it's interesting, isn't it?
Don't want to pay the 20 quid. So whether that's, Bupa Annex, whatever it is, what's that term called? I forgot the name of the term.
It's like nudge theory in the inverse, isn't it?
But it's like, you think about this, it's like, so provide really high quality medical insurance for your employees. They've got to pay the first 20 quid, then everything else is covered, or it's all paid for, then they're backwards and forwards. People go to the hospital an awful lot more, and the doctors a lot more than maybe they need to. Now, we've seen telemedicine become something since COVID as well now. So people, and I think telemedicine's great, because my memories of going to the doctors when I was a kid is that you'd get an appointment, you'd go and sit in that horrible waiting room and everyone was coughing and spluttering.
The little like red sign.
Yeah.
That's it.
And then eventually you go in and the doctor says,
you're like 45 minutes late. Come on. Yeah.
And the doctor would see you and sit down and say, what's wrong? You're like, oh yeah, I've got a sore throat. And he'd look at it, he'd put a piece of that wooden lollipop stick down your throat.
It's your antibiotics off your pop.
Yeah.
But you do that from home
I'll give you
now.
a prescription, yeah.
Yeah,
and so I look at that and I'm like, actually makes more sense, telemedicine. But when I look at this kind of like, because for me it's like, make sure people are happy.
Yeah.
Make sure people have got purpose and mission, which you've spoken about. Okay, and give them things, because you can't solve everyone's problem, can you?
No, and you can't be expected to.
Okay, well, every employee that doesn't have their problem solved, okay, could be the 1 in 5 that then does jump ship. And if that's the case, how do you ever fix it? And you've always got to accept 1 in 5 are going to go anyway.
You're never going to fix all of it, are you? And to your point, that is an incredible benefit, and that just speaks volumes, doesn't it, to the import of the people in the business. And I'm a priority here, because that is a hell of a shelling out, isn't it? That's not cheap.
No, it's huge money.
But then if you think about the preventative piece from a mental health perspective, mental health is soon to become the second biggest spend in private medical, behind MSK, overtaking cancer.
Say that slowly and loudly, because that's really important.
Yeah, so historically, the most expensive claim for private medical, as you all know, is musculoskeletal, because the vast majority of complaints, bones, etc., like myself with my bicep, right? Then it's cancer, because then it's often less prevalence, but much more expensive treatment if someone's going through it, elongated, all right? Then mental health is in third. Mental health in the next 2 years will be the second highest premium, overtaking cancer, because of the rate of increase of claims. And actually, interestingly, in private medical, about 80% of all claims are sent to therapy. 80% of all triage. When they come in, they speak to someone on the phone, okay, therapy. If you actually look at the National Institute of Clinical Excellence and there's the triage or the recommended pathways, they say that only actually about 24% of people should be sent to therapy, 76% should get psychotherapy or guided self-help. So we're sending many, many more people into a severe pathway, which is costing the business every single time. The average cost of a therapy treatment over a year is about £1,000, £1,100 in the UK.
So what's the impact? So let's measure this for a second so everyone's got context. What percentage of it is coming from people having problems created by the workplace environment as opposed to what's going on in their own lives? Because they're sat on computer games of an evening. They have a different life. If we look at the stats recently, we've seen that young people aren't drinking as much as they used to.
Much less interesting, isn't it?
Okay, yeah. Bars and clubs are closing down across the country. People are having a matcha latte and doing yoga way more than, when I was around. It didn't even exist. So that tells me that younger people are less keen to go down a dodgy path or a riskier path. So if that's happening, do we have mental health becoming a bigger thing just because than it was before? or was when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, was it just something that you weren't allowed to think existed? And because you weren't allowed to think existed, because your dad would give you a clip round the ear and, you know, you'd fall over, he'd dust you down, and it'd be kind of like man up, boy, and toughen up and stuff like that. Not that was wrong, but that's just how it was.
Yeah.
But if things then become allowed to be a thing and we allow them into our consciousness, do we almost become a little bit more hypochondriac about that what once wasn't allowed that's now allowed to?
It's so interesting. This is a real like meaty question, right? And I'm not a doctor, so I've got my opinion, but you'd have to ask obviously higher qualified people than myself. But so the lowering of the bar has happened. So people feel easier to reach out now, right? Because everyone's talking about it on social media. Like myself, truly, I've shared my experience fairly openly because I want to help other young men that feel like they're the only person in the world. And that is undoubtedly a great thing. But then that's also potentially lowered the bar for what is accepted as a mental health condition, right? And perhaps when someone's really struggling, they're feeling low mood, it's like badged as depression, but it could actually be low mood. And there's a really thin line between the two. They're getting help, that's good news. Perhaps some of them are being pushed into pathways that are not quite correct. About 150 in every 1,000 people in the UK are on antidepressants now, 15% of the entire population.
Yeah, but...
Massive.
Yeah, but...
But then, so maybe some of them shouldn't be on it,
right?
Question mark. But actually, self-harm in young people absolutely rocketed. So people taking drastic action, suicide rocketing. So the number of people struggling is increasing. The drivers, there's so many, right?
It's because if society allows you to think that it's normal or way more normal than it was before, then it becomes far more acceptable to do.
Yeah, to have a condition, not to make extreme.
It doesn't tell me that there's more people that are miserable or more people that are down on their luck or more people that are, have had catastrophes. We've all lost a partner, you know, we've all had tragedy in our life. We had a family member that got sick. We've all had these kind of things. Everyone's been fired. You know, we've all had these types of things. Those things arguably were probably more brutal 25 years ago than they are today. You know, in those days it was you're fired. Now it's let's have a meeting and think about how we can help you find a new job. So it's like, for me, it's like, it goes back to the very beginning of our conversation about subjective data. What is the actual data?
Well, the fact that more suicides are happening, so people are taking drastic actions.
No, I'm not saying that's not. So yes, suicides have gone up.
Yeah.
So let's just think about that for a second.
Yeah.
When back in my day, that wasn't a considered option in the way that, and I'm not saying I know this, I'm asking the question. Do we think that back in my day, that wasn't a considered option as easily to be picked as it is now because of how much it's talked about, how much it's become, you know, it's very normal to be very, very low and very, very dark. And that's the bit that I always, you know, struggle with because yes, the numbers are up, but why really?
There's got to be a million factors, this one. We don't have all the time in the world to deal with that one.
But people are using this. We're reading stuff in the press. We're reading books. Yep. We're watching YouTube videos.
But so the issue there is the fact that Gen Z spend 8.94 hours a day on their phones. They exist in a different world that you and I didn't growing up. Okay. So therefore, they're exposed to things that we never were and be led to compare themselves to people they'll never be. And that is a recipe for sadness and disaster, right? When you're 15 and you're, like we took the plastic surgery thing.
On my other podcast
episode.
Like
people getting boob jobs as young as 14. You think, what a terrible place to be in at 14 years old, not being allowed to grow up, just actually being a young girl, right? This is where we are. This is how they're made to feel. And that is different. You wouldn't want to grow up now, would you?
Okay, so I
certainly wouldn't.
No, I look at I've got two daughters, 23 and 26 years old, and I think, what an awful world that we've created for them. But so when we look at that though, if we're going to blame the mobile phone and blame social media, that means we're never going to change anything because we're going to move into the next evolution of that. Because you're not going to stop You can't
change how people consume content, but you can change what they consume. So at JAAQ, with the company we serve social media.
You can't change how.
You can't change what they consume. No, sorry, you can't change how they consume it, which is a style, short form video, really flashy, do like the algorithm knowing you better than you know yourself, right? But you can change what they consume.
How?
By the social media companies who are pushing more into the regulation space. They're actually trying to get rid of that terrible content on there, improving that capture and removal.
Potentially make less money?
Potentially. They're doing it in the short because they know they've got to exist in the long term. And they're being pushed with legislation. So that is changing, right? But then separately, companies like JAAQ are popping up and serving short form content that feels like social media, like Netflix, like TikTok. It's all validated by clinicians and feels cool. We're launching a platform for kids later this year. We've got 10,000 schools ready to take it. That's kids sharing their experience of going through key stages. We don't want to pathologize things. We want to like talk about life moments, divorce, neurodiversity, trolling, stuff like that, and get kids to share their experiences delivered in a social media type style. That's very much keeping the same format, making it engaging, flashy, but it's educational, it's positive.
So hold on a minute. So arguably then, if this is the answer,
It's one of.
well, it's a very big and bold way of changing something that really is at the core of the problems. Yeah. If we take suicide and mental health.
Course. Yeah.
And so if that is going to be a way, you've got to get every capitalist organisation that benefits from using social media, which is anyone that runs ads, all of those social media platforms, to agree to do that. But what you then do, in my opinion, is you just delay. Because in some countries they've banned, pornography under the age of 16 and stuff like that.
Australia got rid of social media under 16.
And social media under the age of 16.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like then the day they turn 16, all of a sudden they turn into. I don't know this, but in my mind is like they're living free and they're dancing in the park with their family.
16, it's like pow.
They walk through to a happy birthday. There's your phone and your social media
which is potentially worse, right? Because then they've not got used to it. But it's really interesting.
You become a zombie overnight.
In Australia, an amazing example of the workplace. Like health and safety risks here, 1976 Health and Safety Act in the UK, it probably needs an update. Right? Slips and trips and falls, right? But we have to like capture the things that are risks to the people in the business, hazardous waste, blah, 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 all those things. In Australia, they have to capture them from a psychosocial perspective. So like this like the stressors that are placed on the people in the business. So they are ahead in that legislative perspective, which is what's happening in that social media space as well. So they're catching up. And yes, the governmental arms work slower, but it's happening. And then the social media bodies themselves are actually making some of the changes they need to exist in that post-legislation world. Yes, it's slow. They won't do so until they're absolutely hammered for it. You've got people that sit there and they go through like the flagged content almost on a platform, and then they're exposed to a lot of horrible stuff. And it's often farmed out. There's been legal cases of certain companies been taken to court for the harm that's done, right? But then it's changing every time, and they're trying to put in protections for those people, trying to change it. It's slow, but it is happening. And then there are companies, good startups like JAAQ, trying to step into that space and serve content that actually helps kids in a way that social media companies have done for years.
Okay. I'm going to give you a chance to pitch JAAQ now, so we'll get that one out in a second. But before we do.
Yeah, please.
You talk about this type of stuff. And I agree. There's if there's a way that we can kind of influence stuff to be done in the right direction in the right way, then I'm all for it. When we look at business owners, that guy that owns the SME, he's got the 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 employees. He's not running PwC, He's running a proper company that has been
He's
funded.
running CWP.
He's been funded by him selling his house to get the business going, and he's sitting there running an overdraft facility that's massive. He's got rent on office and rates, and the government's making it difficult for him to succeed in business. Okay. Which arguably is a damn sight larger number of people out there than we give credit for.
It is a lot, isn't it?
What advice could we give those guys that are running, ladies as well, that are owning and running those businesses to deal with really, really taking care of things? Because there's two rules I think should be law in the world, okay?
Okay, I'm ready for this one. Let's go.
So one law I believe in the world that should exist is that everyone should be made to be in service of others once a month. Okay,
volunteering,
by
please.
law, volunteering, yes. So by law, you have to volunteer to be in service of others, whatever that may be. If you're into animals, if you're into religion, if you're whatever it may be, you're into charity. Well, it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever you can do to help somebody else outside of yourself, because that was the cure for my depression and my suicide. Okay, that being a service.
When you get
of
out
others.
of your own head and think of others, it's impossible to worry about yourself in that perspective, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that must be a law that every country employs, and it's one Sunday afternoon.
If you stand on that one, I'll vote for you.
Oh, well, good. Okay, so then there's my second law.
Okay. Well,
my second law is by law, everybody has to be consciously kind to somebody every day. So
what would that look like?
That means, let's say you're the security guard, you're the bus driver. Okay, you're the security guard in my building. I come in, I grab a coffee for you on my way in. I stop and ask you how your day's going. Ask about your family and your kids. That's what I do. It's 5 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
Okay. Not even 5, can be 3. But but I take the time to talk to somebody, to compliment them on their new hairstyle, compliment them on their work that they've done. Just take the time to be consciously, sincerely kind to somebody every day.
The world would be a better place, wouldn't it?
If everybody did that, half the wars that go on wouldn't take place. Because it goes back to that Jim Jeffries sketch when he talks about muskets and when the guns in America. He talks about muskets and he says, when muskets, he said, back in the olden days, he goes, well, muskets, he goes, you got to load them. He said, and that takes a little while. And he says, as you put in the gunpowder in, all of a sudden you're like, oh, you're not so bad after all. And it's almost like you take away that anger in that moment, that impulsiveness. So
I wrote a chapter in my book on it. It's called Eskide Ekmek. It's a Turkish term. It's actually just published in Turkey, interestingly. And it means bread on the hook. And it's a term for hundreds of years ago. So you go into the bakery, you'd pay for Eskide Ekmek, you'd buy a loaf for yourself, and you put a loaf of bread on the hook outside for someone in need.
Paying it forward.
And that's the original paying it forwards. So that's where I believe that comes from my research. And so it's always, I don't know if you do Eskide Ekmek or it happened. I don't know if it's a verb or a noun, but but it's interesting. You're so right. And the way, that's why it comes to volunteering being the greatest return. That's where you got out of your depression. The same for myself as well. And when you're constantly ruminating about yourself, you're leaving little room for others. But when you look out, it's very difficult then to lament on the things that are going on in your life. But it can be hard to get out of that funk, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, the fascination for me was soup kitchens.
Did you work in them for a while?
No, but I always used to wonder why people would do it.
Yeah,
like, I've only done it once.
Okay,
but I used to wonder, why would people do that? And why? Late at night,
sense, right?
No, it makes no sense whatsoever. And then you go and do it, and it's like with all the stuff I've done, and the children that we've brought back from Bangladesh and stuff. It's like when you're spending time with these kids, when you're spending time with people and you're helping people and you're not judging them, okay? Yeah. And it's a bowl of soup, a coffee, and just how's your day? How are you getting on? What
There's
do you
nothing
need?
more selfish than altruism. There's nothing that makes you feel
people
better.
Would always say, that's right. People would always say to me, "You're so kind. You're so kind." I'm like,
"Oh, I'll do it for me." Yeah, 100%. It's true. Otherwise, it wouldn't make us feel that way. It's in our biology, right?
But if that's the case for the whole of humanity, that we selfishly get the upside by being really kind, you just think about that. If everyone does it, everyone wins, and everyone wins.
All right, yeah, cool.
So they're the two laws.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, so we've got CEOs of companies that will be watching and listening to this right now, running big sales forces, running businesses that they've been growing. Okay, what can we do? What can we think about that we don't always think about?
Instead of putting stuff in, what can you take out? For me, the greatest wellbeing intervention is not about more but less. It's about, so if you've got 6 meetings a day, right? You've got 6, you think, bloody hell, I'd love 6 meetings. And you go onto Teams or Google or whatever, and you cut each one by 5-10 minutes, you'll save 4.8 work weeks worth of time this year. That's a lot of time to get up, to stretch, to move, to be. That could be the greatest intervention you possibly do for your people.
Wow.
So it's those little things, those little moments. How can I help people here understand that they're empowered as a smart human to do whatever the hell they need? First, you create space. My second TED talk was called The Secret to Wellbeing. And the formula to it is understand yourself rather than some idiot on social media, thinking through what your best self needs. Creating time for it, something that's collected from every single wellbeing conversation, and focus on the little things every day. And if you just think through those things, it's actually not about putting more in, rather taking something out and saying, it's cool, you do your thing. Look what I'm doing. Get them to exemplify the behaviors, and that'll make a bigger change. Then, if you want to consider it a wellness app or something that serves the people, yeah, why not? And it does work. It can work for the right people, but the greatest thing you could do is give smart people 5 minutes to themselves.
Interesting. I love that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I love I always do the maths and stuff, and we're an audience. I got 174 people. I get my phone out, and collectively, we just saved 17 years. It's fun though. It makes it real and makes wellbeing feel like something you can grab. And it's like, create the space, understand yourself rather than what some dude who spent a week in an ashram is telling you need to do, right? Yeah. And then just focus on the little things over a period, and then prioritize the hell out of that. Communicate that to your team, because often we get annoyed they're not respecting our space. Have you told them what you need? Have you told them you've got to pick your kids up or do something? Of course you haven't, because you're a hardworking individual, and how could you possibly have a life outside of work?
Yeah.
But then that comes from the top, and the CEO starts sharing that, or the exec and the board. Other people start doing it.
Okay, 2 things before we finish. Tell me all about JAAQ.
Yep, JAAQ stands for Just Ask a Question. Just ask a question.
Just ask a question. Okay.
It was born to give people the right information. It was done as a free site to the world. We've then developed that, created a platform for businesses where we film all the leaders, 100 topics, so like addiction, any form of mental health, anything that people could be going through. And we got the lived experience with like celebrities and people. We've got Formula One stars on there, professional rugby teams, Olympic athletes sharing what it is they're growing up and stuff. And then the expert next to them. It looks and feels like social media. So we've got the site that we serve to the world for free because we want to help 1 billion people. We've got workplaces we film and develop platforms like NatWest, Nationwide, Workday, Bupa, and we help Bupa's clients as well. Then we're about to launch a platform for kids to the world because I believe it's absolutely needed. We've got 10,000 schools with a piece of research found that 82% of schools are using paper-based interventions to teach their kids about anxiety and depression. Depression is X, anxiety is X. Digital native generation, we want to give them tools the way they want to consume it. And to do so, and we intend to engage 1 billion people, and that's exactly it. So if you want to check it out, it's JAAQ.org, and JAAQ Jr. will be coming soon, just because it's the right thing to do.
Do you know Mo Gaudat?
He's actually an investor.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Mo's in.
He's on the platform. He's in. We've got some incredible people who've joined the mission and see what we're trying to do.
Tell me some of those people. So we know Mo very well. He works with us, so...
Yeah, Bolt Angels have brought a load of people through. Roger Black, former Olympian, who got his gold medal the other day. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw it after 26 years, yeah.
Incredible. He's another one. We've got a lot of like people like that who see it. As soon as they see it and feel it, the platform, they're like, I'm in. Like, I see it. I can see how this will work. And we're partnering with Bupa now to push to all of their clients. It's incredible. Like, and the feeling you get around it, and now it's a bit of a move. We had Davina McCall come in, she shared her story, and lots of like famous. Big John was in the other day. Everybody goes, bosh, he's on the platform, but that's what you want to see. Like, he gets so much shit online, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But he turns up every day, positive for his family, trying to support his son in his boxing, dealing with all the trolls. So that's what we want to do. We want to be like mental health for like 2025. Like breaking down barriers, you know what I mean? Sharing stories of addiction. We got content on like porn addiction. You ever spoke to someone who suffers with porn? Of course you haven't. Apparently it's 8% of the UK. So we want to be the place where people come to ask a question they simply couldn't elsewhere. We want to be, either people go to NHS or like reams of clinical information, which when you're struggling is impossible, or they'll go to social media, which is equally, if not more problematic, right? Because you've got some idiot who thinks they've got X and is sharing Y, like a soup diet will fix it. So what we want to do is sit in the Venn in between really cool style content, but clinically validated. 40,000 answers now, growing every week. Yeah, and trying to change the world. So we're setting up in the US now. Little proof of concept in Toronto and New York, and then pushing out to the Middle East soon. So I'll hit you up and I'll get you on the platform.
Absolutely. And how, if people wanted to start implementing that into their business, do you offer a consultation structure first so that people can understand how to do it? Are there people that HR directors and CFOs can talk to? Yeah,
exactly. That'd be me. So I lead that.
Okay, so if I was to take a bunch of our corporate clients and say, can you come and sit down and talk to them, explain how this works to show them how it benefits them?
Yeah, we work with brokers in the UK, deliver like PPAs to big groups of licenses, so we absolutely do that. With NatWest, we help them to reduce mental health absence by 6.9%. We drive utilisation to have benefit. We film all the leaders in the business, put them on the platform to improve that perception so people can understand, if she can do it, then I definitely can.
Nice.
And what we do is we like immortalise that content, because if it's told at an all hands, it's gone. Whereas if it's on that platform, every person that joins the business can now have a look. Nationwide have done it. They've answered over 60,000 questions in 12 weeks for 17,000 people. So as a launch, they said they'd never seen anything like it. And because it looks and feels different, just because mental health is hard doesn't mean we have to talk about it so clinically and boring all the time. We want to engage the conversation, normalise it, right? But it's not about lamenting on it. I felt X, and there's a platform here where you're going through it. Let's do something about it.
And it comes back down to the thing. You don't have to be evil to want to make a load of money.
Of course you don't.
If you're on a mission
to do something,
if you're doing something good and you're doing something right, you can make a load of money doing that too.
The biggest reduction in well-being that you can have is not having a job in subjective well-being, another Oxford study. So it's potentially the worst thing in your life, but without it, you'd be much worse off, I promise. And if you can find a workplace where you're aligned to that purpose, you're in a small company of people, you're getting shit done, you're out there, you're earning the bread, right? You're working hard, you're in the trend. That's what it's all about. And that cohesiveness drives well-being. That is what drives it, right? And then it's about how can we get a little bit of flexibility in there and making sure other groups have got the same opportunity to participate. But that's what it's all about.
Ryan, thank you so much for coming to join us today, mate. This is a fascinating conversation. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Allsop & Allsop Mortgage Brokers, the leaders in Dubai real estate. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a seasoned investor, or looking to refinance, Allsop & Allsop's dedicated mortgage team will expertly guide you every step of the way, ensuring a seamless and stress-free journey. Now, with over 16 years of experience, they offer exclusive access to the UAE's best rates, personalized advice, and tailored financing solutions that perfectly suit your needs, leaving you free to focus on finding your dream home. And And that's what we want. Experience the difference with Allsop and Allsop, your trusted partner in securing the perfect mortgage solution.